All right, welcome back. We're here. It's March Madness time in about, I guess, 2 days, right? Or is 2 days is when the first round of 64 starts, but I think play-in starts tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I have here one day. It says on the March Madness bracket challenge, 1 day and 16 hours and 10 minutes and 50 seconds. So we're
Oh, it has a live countdown. It's crazy. There's a lot of controversy actually recently. The governor of West Virginia sued the NCAA for leaving West Virginia out of the tournament. And then
and now he's the
And
coach.
now the West Virginia coach has moved to IU Bloomington. He's going to be our new head coach.
Yeah, I saw the news today. I was just scrolling through Instagram and it said like 20 minutes ago. Like they already had like a marketing graphic for him and everything on our official website. And I'm like, or on official Instagram, and I was just like, whoa, I was not expecting that. Did you hear his name a lot? Because I heard a lot of like Chris Beard a lot a
Yeah,
couple
I did
months
hear Chris
ago.
Beard a lot.
But then kind of as we built up, I kind of stopped hearing potential candidate names. So did you hear his name? I was wondering.
Not really, no. I think it's partially just because he was only at West Virginia for a year, and just because they were good, I think people were probably just expecting him to renew his contract, but IU must have offered him a pretty penny.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's all about the dollar sign when it comes to getting a coach.
Yeah, I mean, it is a next step up for him too, because I mean, he's West Virginia is not exactly a blue blood program or anything, and IU is that. Like some people, I remember Mick Cronin's name thrown around a lot. Like he was one of the people that was thrown around a lot, but I didn't think they would pick him just because it seemed like such a lateral move for him, at least, to go from one blue blood to another.
Yeah, no, definitely. Before we get into our bracket stuff, I definitely want to talk about how IU was left out of the tournament. I want to definitely get your thoughts
We
on.
shouldn't have been left out. I don't think we should have been left out. I think Xavier and North Carolina should not be in
Really?
the tournament. I think it should be us and West Virginia. Those are the two teams that should be in the tournament. And
You
maybe,
know,
maybe that's why they waited so long because West Virginia, I remember like out of 111 projected brackets, West Virginia wasn't even projected to be a first, like in one of those first four games. They were just projected to be in the tournament, period. So I think that's probably why they waited so long in announcing his hire because now that they're officially not in the tournament, his season's over, so they can announce it.
yeah, no. I mean, here's the thing when it comes to this, and I'm gonna kind of circle back to what we talked about for most of the year, college football. Like when it comes to the college football committee and when it comes to the NCAA bracket, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
But I'll say this, it makes no sense to me how you could have the athletic director of North Carolina on the committee and I don't expect that guy. I'm not mad at that guy because if I was the athletic director of IU and you asked me, who should I pick? Who do you want in? North Carolina or Indiana basketball? Well, as the athletic director of Indiana, well, of course I'm gonna pick it. I think it's on more so the NCAA for having these people in the committee that are gonna clearly have bias
Yeah.
towards a team. It makes no sense. Like, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that the dude made like a biased decision, but I'm just gonna sit up here and say that he made the only decision he could have made as the athletic director of North Carolina.
Yeah. It definitely looks like bias too, just because of the like circumstances of him being the North Carolina athletic director and North Carolina getting into the tournament.
He shouldn't even be there in the first place. I don't know what they need to do to adjust it, but Ward Manuel, I think he was the chairman of the college football playoff. I think he was tied to Michigan in some way. I think I'm
I
not
think he
for
was like
he
a
might
former athletic director for Michigan or something.
or yeah, or something like Dude, no, we should not have ties to people that are in this. We should maybe have like referees, like or people, I guess, like journalists. But when I say journalists, I use that term loosely. I'm talking about like actual journalists that like report on the games and not
Like the
like
AP.
yeah, not social media like people, you know, like
Yeah,
we
because
I
a
don't
lot of
know
those people
what
are
they need to
tied to a
do.
university too. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I'm a like Oregon fan or something," and then they'll give their perspective on like Oregon, and it's clearly biased.
You know, really what this should come down to, in my opinion, is like a jury for a homicide trial. You need people that are unbiased, that have no like precedent in their head of Alabama football or Duke basketball.
Yeah,
You just need people in there. Hey, this is Team A's record. This is their margin of victory. This is Team B's record. This is their margin of victory. Now you have to make a decision. Maybe we should just start doing that. Maybe just showing these people like the athletic director. Don't even give team names at this point. Just show Team A, show Team B, and then you just go from there. Because at this point, there's just way too much connection
yeah,
going on.
yeah. No, I mean it's going to be hard to find people though, just because I feel like so many people are tied to a college or even tied to like a conference or whatever. And some even some journalists. I mean, Paul Feinbaum is notorious for being like tied to SEC football because he went to Tennessee and all that. Like and Heather Dinich is another one as well. I don't really know her connection, but I know she like is kind of in that same
I think she went
sphere
to
of
I.
influence.
She
She went
went
to
to
IU?
Yeah, no, that's the funny. No, I there was it's a funny thing. People are like, how in the world does she like not want IU to go in? But she went to IU. Yeah, no, that's a funny one.
No, she
But
must have some beef. She must have some beef.
I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I know it's gonna be super hard to find people. I don't know what they need to do. They just need to adjust it to where someone that is literally like the athletic director of North Carolina is not choosing between North Carolina and Indiana. At
Yeah.
least have the ACC commissioners vote on the SEC, or at least have the SEC commissioners vote on the Big Ten. So that way it's not like you're not voting on anyone that you may know. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I just had to get that out of the way.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the things with college sports, at least like on that level, is just that there's so much bias just because of the amount of coverage that's on it. I feel like there's a lot of coverage on college sports, and I think that's part of the problem. It's just that like everyone follows it, and so everyone kind of develops their own biases, whether they like just recently started following college sports or they've been following college sports since they were like two. I don't know if anyone is following college sports if they're two, but if they are, it's probably because their parents are also watching college sports.
No, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, well, we can get into our brackets here. I'm very curious to see some of your picks or hear some of your picks here.
Well, I guess, do you want to see Ethan's picks first?
Yeah, no, so I've not seen Ethan's picks, so this is going to be a live reaction here. I'm
I
gonna
got
kind
a
of look
quick
at my
glimpse.
bracket too and kind of compare him and I's. Because I have a couple brackets made, but I think I have the one that I'm gonna present. Well, not present, but I guess pick here for this podcast.
Let's see. It should be. Wait, is it shared? I can't
Yeah, I
tell.
can see. I can see. Yeah, I
Okay.
can see.
All right. Yeah. So here's the he screen. Okay. So Ethan screen recorded it from his phone. He used the ESPN app. That at least that's why like there's the screen there. Do you want me to go
Uh,
back really quick
no,
to?
no, no. I see Auburn, Louisville. Yep.
Okay.
Michigan, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Iowa State. Oh my gosh, him and I have very similar brackets in the first round. Uh, well, I picked BYU. Illinois. Interesting.
Now he's going to round of 32. It's got some pretty interesting ones in there. Not too many upsets from what I've seen, but
St. Mary's over
uh,
Alabama. That's a
St.
big one.
Mary's over Alabama is an interesting one because they did meet last year in the tournament too.
Mm.
He has Wisconsin going really far.
I have Wisconsin going really far in one of mine.
Really?
Yeah, Auburn and Houston in the championship, and he has Auburn winning it all. Well, that's interesting.
Dang.
That's certainly interesting. Do you want to go first on yours, or you want me to go?
Uh, I guess we could like take turn. We could go like by region if you want. So like we could do like the South region first
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
East.
yep.
Um, and
That's
then I
fine with
could,
me.
yeah. All right. So I guess my first pick, obviously Auburn, number one seed going up against a play-in 16 seed.
Yeah.
Like I think they should win that game. Whoever comes out of that play-in game, Auburn should win. Um, Then for Creighton versus Louisville, I have Louisville winning that. A lot of times I'll pick the 9 seed over the 8 seed, but I feel like Louisville is really underseeded from where they should be. I feel like Louisville probably should be like a 5 or 6, even maybe a 4, just because of how well they did. I mean, they were runners up in the ACC tournament that was played not too long ago.
Yeah.
Um, One that I was really pondering over was the Michigan UC San Diego, just because this is their first year in D1. But I feel like Michigan will should win that game. I thought they played pretty well in the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin. They're really good defensively, so I think if they're able to shut down UC San Diego, I think they should win that game. But that is definitely one that I had on upset watch. And then for Texas A&M and Yale, I have Yale winning that game. Just because the past couple years, a Ivy League college has made it into the second round.
No, yeah. No,
Past
that
two
was on
tournaments.
my radar too.
And
Yale could
Yale's
low key
good.
pull it
Yale's
off.
good. Like they're really good at shooting that three ball. So I
Hey,
think,
that's what March Madness is all about.
yeah, like you get hot, then you're chilling. And Texas A&M's also been kind of spotty as well. They did lose to Texas in the SEC tournament, and Texas was ranked like they were towards the bottom of the SEC, or at least the bottom half of the SEC. So I don't know. Texas A&M might be going in cold, and if that's really good for Yale, so I picked Yale. And then Old Miss versus San Diego State or UNC. I picked Old Miss. I think they come out on top of whoever comes out of there. Neither of those teams have been great this year,
No, definitely not.
and Old Miss has been amazing. So I mean, I and Chris Beard's just been rocking over there. Iowa State versus Lipscomb. I have Iowa State. I know they're down a key player, so they're not going in 100%. But I mean, they are a higher seed than last year. Wait, no, last year they were two. But um, I think they should beat Lipscomb just because of how they play defensively. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so I have Iowa State.
Yeah.
And then for Marquette versus New Mexico, I have New Mexico because Marquette's been pretty disappointing this year so far. Like they were in the top 25 AP, and uh, I don't think they ended in the top 25, but they've just had a very disappointing season. So I don't anticipate them beating a New Mexico State that's just extremely strong on the offensive side. I think New Mexico's just going to overwhelm them with points. And then Michigan State versus Bryant. I have Michigan State. Um, I like this Michigan State squad, at least in comparison to the past couple seasons. I feel like this is a pretty well balanced squad that they have. Um, and then for round of 32, I have Louisville upsetting Auburn in the round of 32. And I
Wow.
think, like, I know, like, at first I'm like, and it's partially just because I feel like Auburn, I mean, they lost in the SEC tournament game. I didn't really like the way they left it. And I think Louisville's just been pulling surprises out of their pockets left and right. I think they could win a close one against Auburn. I feel like they're pretty balanced, and I think they've got the guys to do it. I think, and it's March Madness. Like there's always something crazy that happens like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
then Michigan versus Yale, I've got Michigan. just because I think they'd be able to shut down Yale's 3-point game. They did a great job of that against Wisconsin. Wisconsin didn't make a basket, I don't think, in the last 2 minutes of that game. So if Michigan is able to lock it down and they have to, and then I have Ole Miss upsetting Iowa State, kind of like early because Iowa State's not at 100%. Ole Miss played a really tough SEC schedule this year, and they've been playing pretty good basketball consistently. So I think Ole Miss can pull something out against Ohio State. Iowa State. Wow. Why did I say Ohio State? Ohio State hasn't been in the tournament for like 3 years. And then I have Michigan State over New Mexico, just because I think Michigan State's defense is going to be key for that game. Like they're going to be able to shut down New Mexico. Then for Sweet 16, I got Louisville over Michigan, just because I think I feel like Michigan's going to have a tough time shutting down Louisville. They've just been they've been rolling. Louisville's one of the more underrated teams, and historically also Big Ten schools don't tend to do well in March Madness, or at least when I say Big Ten schools, I mean the ones that are not from the Pac-12, because this is the Pac-12 Big Ten schools' first time in the Big Ten, so we don't really know how they're going to do. But normally teams like Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, like they don't do as good as they're supposed to because of the Big Ten tournament, like the way that's scheduled. And then I do have Michigan State over Ole Miss though. I feel like Michigan State's kind of an exception to this rule a little bit just because of Tom Izzo. And
Yeah,
then
he's really good at getting the Final Fours, man.
yeah, he's good. He's good at doing that. But I have Louisville stopping him at in the Elite Eight. So I have Louisville as one of my Final Four teams.
Yeah, so that's in the South.
Yeah, that's the South.
Gotcha. So is that where your South run ends then? Do
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
gotcha?
Louisville runs the South. That's what I have. Which
So then
is
who do
insane.
they lose? Who do they lose to from the West then? Louisville.
Louisville, I have Louisville losing to Florida.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let me go ahead and get into my South then. I'm not gonna spend too much time on like the ones where I feel like the teams are just really far apart. I
Yeah.
know there's gonna be upsets. I know I'm gonna be wrong because this is March Madness. That's just what it is. And I just looked at my South division and I picked every single higher seed. So I have, and this is not the way you do it. I have different, but I have it different for like the West and stuff like that. But I have Auburn beating the 16th seed playing team. Louisville beating Creighton, just like you. Michigan. Now I do have Texas A&M beating Yale. I think A&M can just over physical them and just attack the paint. I would think that they would be able to overpower Yale, but I will say Yale has had a history in the past of like out rebounding some of these bigger teams. You ever remember that clip of Torian Prince at the press conference, and they're like, "How does Yale out rebound Baylor?"
Oh
And
yeah.
Torian Prince, so what you're gonna want to do is you go up and grab the ball with two hands. That's considered a rebound.
You
They
bring it
got more
down.
of those than us. No, yeah. So Yale has a history of pulling off some weird stuff. But we'll see. I mean, I honestly think Texas A&M, the SEC has been dominant with like I think like 14 teams in this bracket. I mean,
Most
that's
most
insane.
from a conference ever.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Ole Miss, I got either with San Diego State or UNC, and that was basically to stick it to UNC if they wind up getting in there. I just want Ole Miss to just run up the score on them, hopefully. Iowa State against Lipscomb, I don't see a world where they win. But hey, that's the beauty of March Madness. I hope I'm wrong because
That's one
like
of the problems with these teams is like if you don't know them, like that could be like the one team with the one like they always say like the white guys always play good in March, which is so
yeah,
bad. But like
the
it's so
shooters
true
shoot,
though.
bro. The shooters shoot. I do have Marquette over New Mexico, but honestly, looking back on it, I kind of get your point about New Mexico, and I wish I picked New Mexico, but I mean, it's already done. But no,
And you
like
can't go wrong picking a Patino either.
yeah, no, definitely. And then I got Michigan State being Bryant. Let's go to my round of 32 for the South. Auburn, I have beating Louisville. Now you have Louisville beating Auburn, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I that's where we kind of defer here. Michigan, though, me and you are pretty high on Michigan because I also have them beating Texas A&M. I have Iowa State beating Ole Miss. Honestly, looking back on this, I wish I did pick Ole Miss. I with Chris Beard, I honestly think this will be like the March Madness year that he kind of makes a name for himself. I know he's kind of getting bigger, but I think this is like the March Madness year where people are gonna be like, oh, this guy can coach.
Yeah.
So I have Iowa State, but I'm a little shaky on that. I got Michigan State over Marquette in the round of 32. Now let's go to my Sweet 16 for the South. So Auburn and Michigan. I do have Auburn. A big reason why I just have hope in Auburn and like a lot of faith in them is because they're center and because they're coach. I think Bruce Pearl is trying to get over that hump that he's been chasing for years to get over. And I think that their center, my gosh, what's his last name? Is it Brom or something? Or I forget his last name, but their center, he was up for Player of the Year.
It's
He's
like
just
Broom, I think.
Broom, yeah.
Broome.
Dude, he is just a dog. Like, oh my gosh, that guy, I mean, he's an instant 20 and 10 a night. Like, that's what it feels like, especially in the more important games. I saw his stats in conference play was pretty high. And then so this is where I have Michigan State actually losing to Iowa State.
Hmm.
Honestly, Iowa State I have going pretty far. I don't think I have a lot of faith in that, but I honestly think I just feel like they're the weird team for some reason that could go far. And then in the Elite Eight, in this for the South, I have Iowa State versus Auburn. That's where I have my little Iowa State kind of run there, I guess, ending against
Wow.
Auburn. And then I have Auburn actually losing to someone in the Final Four, but I'm not going to reveal who yet. But I have Auburn losing in the Final Four to someone, and we'll get into that a little bit when we get to the other regions.
All right, let's go down to the West just because I kind of revealed who I guess was going to win my West, that being Florida. Um, so I've got Florida beating Norfolk State. That's pretty self-explanatory. I have UConn beating Oklahoma. Oklahoma's the weakest SEC team, and I mean it's UConn. You can't go wrong picking Hurley and whoever his squad is. He's normally pretty reliable in March Madness. Um, for Memphis versus Colorado State, I actually have Colorado State winning because they are on a hot streak, and I feel like Memphis is a little bit overseeded. I feel like honestly, they should be seated where Louisville is. They should be the 8 or 9. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Go figure
Memphis,
that, right?
yeah, Memphis has just been so weird, like just too weird this year to the point where I can't really pick them. Like I don't trust them enough. But I feel like this will be my 5-12 upset for my bracket. Then I have Maryland over Grand Canyon. I'm really high on Maryland.
No, me too.
Like I I don't think the Grand Canyon squad that's coming in is as good as last year's. So I think Maryland should win that. Um, I have Missouri over Drake, and this is one that I was a little spotty on, kind of like with Michigan versus UC San Diego. Um, but I think Missouri, tough SEC schedule, had some great wins, even out of conference wins. They beat Texas when Kansas when Kansas was in the top 5 in the AP. So I think there's got to be something there to be said because I mean Kansas has a really great experienced squad. Um, I have Texas Tech beating UNC Wilmington. That's pretty self-explanatory. Um, I have Arkansas. Okay, this part is actually kind of interesting because this little quadrant at the bottom of the South has like 3 of the best college basketball coaches like of all time. You've got Bill Self, Calipari, and Rick Pitino just in one little quadrant down at the bottom, which is insane. Um, but I have Arkansas over Kansas. Um, this is the worst that Kansas has done, I feel like this year, despite me saying that they have like a great squad. Like they just have been playing really poorly at the end of the year. So I picked Arkansas, and Arkansas has actually kind of turned themselves around, I think. They're starting to play hot, and I think that should be good. And they're having one of their key players coming back. So we'll see if they're able to pull out a win. And then I have St. John's over Omaha, which it's Rick Pitino. And this has been like he's had a really great year. He's had a really great year. I mean, just won the Big East Conference Championship tournament. Like that's huge. Then I have Florida over UConn. I mean, Florida, obviously, because I already said Florida was going to win my West. I have Maryland over Colorado State, and then Texas Tech over Missouri. Texas Tech is one of those tougher teams in the like they just have a really aggressive style of play that I like, and so I'm picking them to go past Missouri. And then I have St. John's over Arkansas. And then for Sweet 16, I have Florida over Maryland. I think Florida just has a more experienced squad that should beat Maryland. It should be close, but I've honestly the West is kind of my chalkiest bracket besides the 10 and the 12 seed winning. Um, and then for Texas Tech versus St. John's, I have St. John's beating them just because St. John's is everywhere defensively in every single game. And then I have Florida beating St. John's to go and play Louisville in the Final Four.
Wow. Wow. And then who you have, or if you wanted to reveal this later, you can. Who you have winning that matchup then in the Final Four then?
Oh, I have Florida. Florida's winning that.
Gotcha. Something tells me I might hear Florida's name at the end there. Uh, all right. So let's see here. This is the West region. So, yep, Florida over Norfolk State. Got that. I actually have Oklahoma beating UConn because I think that this is the year where Dan Hurley is a little too cocky. Like, obviously, he practices his team very hard, but I think that he has this reputation of himself now in his eyes that no matter what he does, as long as they get to the postseason, they're gonna be good. They're gonna get deep into the postseason. And I respect Dan Hurley a lot for that, but I also think that he's gonna get humbled in an upset by Oklahoma. I do agree with you that Oklahoma is one of the weaker SEC teams. I also think that this is a March Madness 8 and 9 seed where anything can happen.
Yeah.
And for that right there, I think Hurley's going to be shocked. And I feel like it's going to be a very humbling moment for him. And then for the rest of his career, he's going to go back to dominating again. Then I got Memphis over Colorado State. I do agree with you that Memphis is definitely overrated, um, especially seating wise. It's just I don't see Colorado State pulling off the upset, but you already know there's going to be some dude on Colorado State that hits 8 threes and another dude that hits 5 threes, and it's gonna there's something's gonna happen where it's just like it makes like an athletic team like Memphis, and all of a sudden that athleticism doesn't matter because the three ball has changed the game thanks to one Steph Curry, and it's just not gonna matter. I have Maryland over Grand Canyon. I'm super high on Maryland, like you are. I'll get to that in a minute. Missouri over Drake, Texas Tech over UNC Wilmington, Kansas over. I have Kansas over Arkansas. Now, I do agree with you that Kansas is not as good as they have been in the past. I do think Hunter Dickinson is gonna put up a good stat line against Arkansas, and I also Calipari, man, Calipari in the postseason coaching. You just cannot trust them. And it would be one thing if Arkansas was playing like a John Dale University or some crap like that. And even if he was, I still would kind of have not faith in him because what he's done at Kentucky, losing to the 14th seeds and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I
So,
picked Oakland when Calipari was at Kentucky last year.
yeah, see, like I just don't I just trust Kansas a little bit more than the coaching that I could see from Calipari, especially in crunch time. And I have St. John's beating Omaha. And then, so continuing on for the West, Florida beating Oklahoma. I have Maryland beating Memphis, so we kind of continue that Maryland high there. Missouri over Texas Tech. I have
Hmm,
Missouri over Texas Tech. You remember Tamar Bates, who used to play for IU?
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, no, he was like number 53 for IU. Weird number here. I think he's number 8 now on Missouri. He actually, I think the last time I checked in on him was just like a while ago. He actually was putting up pretty good stats. I don't know what he's doing now, but Missouri, I kind of like that pick over Texas Tech because I'm just not really familiar with Texas Tech. And I think Missouri may have the shooters based on what I've seen from him because I actually have watched a little bit of Missouri games because of Tamar. Now Kansas and St. John's, I have St. John's beating Kansas. I'm very high on St. John's because of that coach. You know the coach, Rick.
Only his
Uh,
second year at St. John's too, which is
yeah,
insane.
that is really insane. So now we have Florida and Maryland going at it in the West, and I have Maryland beating
Oh,
Florida. Florida goes down in the Sweet 16, I think. I think Maryland is going to represent the Big Ten in a big way this year. And then
interesting.
also in the West, Missouri, St. John's, I have St. John's beating them to get to the Elite Eight. And then in the West, Elite Eight, we have Maryland and St. John's going at it. That's where I think Maryland's runs ends, and I have St. John's beating Maryland. And then in the Final Four, uh, we have St. John's and Auburn playing against each other. I'll reveal my pick a little later for that. I want to
Oh,
get those Final Four picks a little later for me.
all right, all right. Let's go back up and we're gonna go to the East. Um, so we've got Duke versus 16 seed play-in. I don't know who it is because I can't read the abbreviation.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, they have no faith in those teams.
and I mean, I Duke is another team that I've been kind of high on a little bit. I love Cooper Flag. I love him. Like he's like his hustle that he has in every single game. Like he puts everything on the line. Um, so I think they're gonna cruise past whoever that 16 seed is. Um, I have Baylor over Mississippi State. Um, just because it's 8 and 9, they're pretty interchangeable. Um, I have Oregon over Liberty, Arizona over Akron, which I had to think a little bit about that one because Arizona has at least like with their coach like Lloyd, they have a weird history with March Madness. So I had to think about that one a little bit. Then I have VCU over BYU. That's my 11 versus 6 upset.
I like that one. Yeah,
Um,
I also have that too.
yeah, I don't know, like just after what BYU did last year, and because not even last year, but like in previous years, the Big 12 has had like more teams in, and people would pick like those teams just because they're in the same conference. And I don't like doing that just because it's like they could be like kind of like what North Carolina did. They're like, oh, we had 13 quad one opponents, but they only beat one of them. So it's like you've got to be able to at least win your games. And this kind of happened with BYU last year. They got hot towards the end and then they just crashed and burned. And I think against this VCU team, I think they're primed for that to happen again. Then I've got Wisconsin versus Montana. I feel like Wisconsin's a little, I think it's weird that Wisconsin's higher than Michigan just because Michigan beat them in the Big Ten championship. I don't know if you feel the same way. Um, but I think that's just a little strange that
It's just
Wisconsin.
another reason why it's a flawed system.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna beat a dead horse if we keep talking about it. But yeah, no, it's weird.
I don't know. I don't get it. But they should beat Montana pretty easily, I think. But it is March, like you said, so anything could happen. This could be a 3-14 upset. Then I've got Vanderbilt over St. Mary's. I think Vanderbilt's had some pretty sneaky wins this year, and I mean they've also played a tough SEC schedule. I think they could beat a St. Mary's team from West Coast Conference. And then obviously Alabama over Robert Morris. I think that is pretty self-explanatory. Then I've got Duke over Baylor. I feel like that's also kind of self-explanatory despite it being a 1 versus 9. Then I've got Oregon versus Arizona in a Pac-12 rematch. But I have Oregon winning that. I I love Oregon in March. They always perform really well. It doesn't seem to matter any like how they perform in their conference tournament. They always do well. Then I have Wisconsin over VCU. I'm very much thinking about switching that pick actually to VCU. I think VCU could be a very interesting little Cinderella story. So I think
Ooh,
I'm actually going to switch that one. I think that because 11 seeds tend to do pretty well in March Madness. They're typically the Cinderellas.
I like that.
And then I've got Alabama over Vandy. Um, feel like Alabama, they found a way to get hot last year. They've got an experienced roster like that played. A lot of people return from last year. I think they're primed to go far. Um, then I've got this one's going to be crazy. I've got Oregon over Duke in the Sweet 16.
Wow. Wow.
I just think Duke, they've got a young roster, like not experienced in March Madness, and that's when good coaching and experienced coaching comes into play. And Oregon's coach, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now, but he knows how to coach in March.
Yeah.
He knows how to take a team really far. And then I've got Alabama ending VCU's Cinderella run.
Yeah.
Because both those teams are 3-point shooting teams. I think Alabama's just the better all-around team. And then I have Oregon beating Alabama in the Elite Eight.
Wow. Wow.
My picks, and I'm not gonna say too much more because my picks are nuts, I'm telling you.
Hey, no, that's good. That's what this is, man. This is supposed to be nuts. This is not supposed to be it's not supposed to be like the right pick. It's the March if you think about it, March Madness is never the right pick because the best team
True.
never wins usually.
Yeah.
Um, so then if you're not gonna go into anymore, I'll go into the East for me. I got Duke winning their first round matchup. I have Baylor beating Mississippi State, similar to you. I have a kind of different Cinderella story, I guess, out of here. I got Liberty beating Oregon in
What?
the first round. Oh, yeah,
That's
no,
not just the
I
one.
see Liberty going far. I see Liberty going far. I'm gonna keep going here. So Arizona, I have them beating Akron. I don't really need to go too much more into that. BYU and VCU, I am similar to you. I have VCU beating BYU. I believe in VCU a little bit too, going on a little Cinderella run. Wisconsin, I have them beating Montana in the first round. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt, I have St. Mary's. And then Alabama is beating Robert Morris in that first round matchup. So now for the round of 32 in the East, I have Duke beating Baylor, similar to you. I kind of think that's obvious too.
Yeah.
Arizona and Liberty, I have Liberty beating Arizona. Liberty over Arizona.
That is a team Arizona
I
would lose
don't
to.
I really do think that Liberty is one of those random teams this year that is going to make some type of run. So I also am in agreement there. And then VCU, I have them beating Wisconsin. So I have kind of my Cinderella people are all in the East. They're all in the East. And then St. Mary's and Alabama, I have Alabama beating St. Mary's. And then VCU versus Alabama, that's where I have Alabama kind of stomping them. Duke and Liberty, that's where Liberty's run comes to an end in the Sweet 16. I have Duke beating Liberty. And then in the Elite Eight, I have Duke and Alabama going at it. And I have Bama beating Duke this year, making it to that Final Four, Alabama making it to the Final Four. And then we can go ahead on to the last region and get into the Final Four picks.
Alabama is a team that's on there that is definitely capable of beating a Duke team, especially just considering even just the experience on the roster. Like just
Oh,
between rosters,
100%.
like Alabama definitely has that capability. Yeah, I guess all that's left is the Midwest. Um, I have Houston beating SIUE. That's pretty self-explanatory. I have Gonzaga over Georgia. I know Georgia's in the SEC, but Mark Few has made this, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler for some of my picks, but Mark Few has made the Sweet 16 9 consecutive years in a row. no matter what seed that he's held. And I don't think that's going to change. So I have Gonzaga beating Georgia in a Bulldogs versus Bulldogs matchup. A lot of people are high on McNeese, but I'm choosing Clemson in this matchup. Uh, I feel like the past couple of years, Clemson's been um, they've always been underrated or like an underdog. Like I feel like people just tend to not really look at Clemson too much. And I made that mistake last year, and I'm not making that mistake this year. Um, I've got, and this is another one of my big upsets. I have a High Point over Purdue, and that's just because Purdue, especially at the end of the year, their offense has been so inconsistent, and they don't know how to defend the paint. I swear, like they cannot defend on the inside. And I think that's going to end up leading to their downfall at some point, whether it's in the first round or against Clemson. Um, then I have Illinois versus either Texas or Xavier. Um, I had to think a little bit about this one because I think if Texas wins, then that's going to be a much tougher matchup for Illinois. But I still think Illinois will come out on top at the end of the day. I think Illinois is one of those Big Ten teams this year. They at least yeah, this year like they've got a pretty good roster. They were unhealthy at one point. They had illness strike their roster, I think in like February or January. I think, right?
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
Yeah. So I think they're healthy now, so I think they should be able to make some kind of run. Um, I think they're a little bit underseeded, but it's partially just because of the record they had after being sick. Then there's Kentucky versus Troy. I have Kentucky. I kind of like what Mark Pope's been doing over at Kentucky. I know they've been a little bit cold, but I think they got lucky with the matchup with Troy this year. So I think they should at least make it to the first round. And honestly, Kentucky is well due to move into the second round because they have not moved into the second round in the 2020s. They have not been in the second round of the tournament since 2019.
That's crazy. That
Yeah.
is wild. With all that talent, man.
Yep. So I think Kentucky's due with their new coach and just some new optimism behind their program. Then I've got UCLA, Utah. I've got UCLA in that matchup. UCLA, kind of like Oregon, one of those Pac-12 schools west on the West Coast that always seems to do well in March, um, except against Gonzaga. UCLA can never beat Gonzaga. I swear.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
why. They can't.
Not Pac-12 anymore either. Big Ten now.
Yeah. So we'll see if that Pac-12 magic continues this year for them. And then Tennessee versus Wofford. I have Tennessee. I don't care if the I don't care that they have someone that shoots the granny shot for the free throw. He's 31% from the line. So next. Then I've got Houston versus Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga winning. So that was kind of a spoiler from earlier. I said Gonzaga was going to make Sweet 16. I have them going to the Sweet 16. Clemson versus High Point. I've got Clemson winning that matchup. I think that's where High Point's Cinderella run after beating Purdue ends. Um, I have Illinois beating Kentucky. I like the roster that Illinois has, and they have a very experienced head coach in March. I mean, they made it to the Elite Eight last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and I think Illinois, after taking ill, I think they're due for some victories in March. And then I've got Tennessee over UCLA. I think Tennessee, they're just too good and too experienced to not pick them over UCLA. Like they're way too good. They're experienced at every single level. They're well balanced. They're really good defensively. Like I think Tennessee is going to make some kind of run. I've got Gonzaga versus Clemson. I've got Clemson beating Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. So I've got
Okay.
Clemson going to the Elite Eight, and then I've got Tennessee beating Illinois. So I've got a
Okay.
nice little 5-2 matchup in the Elite Eight, and I have Tennessee coming out on top in that matchup. So my final four on the other side, on the Midwest, on the Eastern Midwestern side, I've got Oregon versus Tennessee, and I have Oregon going to play Florida in the championship.
Wow. In the championship, Oregon and Florida.
Yep.
Wow. Goodness. Okay. Well, I'll let you get to that pick in a little bit. Let me go ahead and go through my Midwest here then. So first round, Houston and SIUE got Houston. Georgia and Gonzaga. I have Georgia beating Gonzaga there. I have Clemson beating McNeese. And then Purdue and High Point. I do have Purdue winning this game simply because I don't want to pick High Point and then Purdue wins. If I want to play it kind of safe and then just see me get absolutely pleasantly surprised if they lose. So High Point, I don't know too much about them, but we're about to find out about them here in
Yep.
a couple of minutes. I have Illinois winning, whether that's against Texas or Xavier. I actually have Illinois going pretty far. More on that in a second. Kentucky beating Troy. UCLA and Utah State. I have Utah State beating UCLA. Uh,
Oh.
so that is a little upset I threw in there just for the fun of it. Tennessee, Wolford. I have Tennessee winning that one, which means I have Tennessee and Utah State going against each other, and I have Utah State beating Tennessee on a little Cinderella
Hmm.
magic, if you'd call it. And then I have Illinois beating Kentucky. I agree. Pope has done a great job this year. I do think that Illinois is going to do a great job of representing the Big Ten in this tournament. And I think they're underrated as well. I have Purdue losing to Clemson. I have Clemson over Purdue, which I just think that people are going to start to realize, and I think people should have already realized this, that Purdue's offense is very stagnant when they go up against a great defensive team. And
Yeah.
they then you kind of realized, oh, if Braden Smith can't facilitate for us and he can't create our offense and he can't hit his pull up mid ranges, we have a problem. And I think Clemson will be able to stop that offense and be able to outscore Purdue. Now Houston and Georgia, I have Georgia beating Houston in a crazy 1-9
Hmm.
matchup. I have Georgia beating Houston, making it Sweet 16. So staying with the Midwest here on the Sweet 16 side, Georgia and Clemson. I have Georgia beating Clemson. They're kind of going on a football run right now. This is not Georgia football. This is Georgia basketball. There's no reason why they should be doing this. But boom, someone's going to come out of nowhere. I'll tell you. It happens every year. I'm banking that one of these Cinderella stories right here. I have a lot of Cinderella stories in my East and West. Uh, so then I have Illinois beating Utah State. That's where Utah State's Cinderella kind of comes to an end. And then in the Elite Eight, I have Georgia and Illinois playing each other, and I have Illinois beating Georgia. I thought you knew you thought I was gonna go Georgia there, but yeah. So then I have in the Final Four, Alabama and Illinois, and in that Final Four, I have Illinois beating Alabama, representing the Big Ten. Representing the Midwest is Illinois. And then in that top, I have St. John's actually beating. Oh, wait, hold up one sec. I have St. John's beating Auburn. And that's where it comes in the matchup St. John's and Illinois in the national championship.
Wow.
You wanna have you already said you haven't said your national championship pick yet, right?
I haven't said who won. I did say like with the matchup. Mine is Florida versus Oregon.
Yeah, Florida and Oregon. I
Got like
remember.
a sea of like red and orange. I've got like a sea of green and orange.
Okay, so who do you have winning that matchup between Florida and Oregon?
I have Florida winning that one.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. Okay. So I
I
want to ask
just Florida's been so dominant. I can't pick against them.
Oh, I agree. I agree. So I have St. John's in Illinois. Who do you think I have winning?
I feel like I want to say St. John's, but I feel like Illinois. I feel like you said Illinois.
So Illinois. I actually have St. John's beating
Oh,
Illinois. Rick Pitino in his second year getting a national championship, coming back from the depths of Louisville where they buried him and all that information with all that scandal stuff, and now he's back with St. John's. What a redemption story this would be. And what a great story it'd be for college basketball. He's one of the best coaches in college basketball.
Yeah. I mean that man has had to adapt to so much too, because I mean,
Oh
he's
my
been
gosh.
coaching since before the 3-point line was invented.
That is crazy to think about.
So,
That's really crazy to think about. What in the world are you? What?
yeah,
When was that?
it's like I think the 3-point line was added in like the 80s or something, 70s or 80s.
No, what? Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Oh my gosh, that's a little crazy. I didn't even realize. I knew he was old. I didn't know he was like prehistoric 3-point line old.
Yeah,
Oh, I get you have to look like college basketball specifically though. But yeah, because I do know
1986,
there was a
1986.
rule that you couldn't dunk because Kareem was so good. He was like at UCLA and he won the National Player of the Year 4 times straight because all he did was dunk. So they banned dunking. So all he could do was lay it up. So I know there's some weird rules in college basketball because it was like too dominant and stuff.
But yeah, so 1986, 1987 season, that's when the 3-point line was added. So Patino's been coaching since, let's see, when was he first coaching? If my computer will actually work. He's 72, and it
Oh,
says that he's coached for a lot of teams. He's also the first coach, I think, to bring 6 teams to the March Madness tournament,
huh. Wow.
which is insane. I like,
No, it's hard to even fathom that.
yeah.
But
So
yeah.
he was a assistant at Hawaii in from 1974 to 1976. And then he was interim head coach at Hawaii in 1976. And then in 1976 to 1978, he coached at Syracuse as an assistant. And then his first head coaching job was in 1978 to 1973 at Boston University.
Wow. He's climbed a long ladder, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of goes to show like it doesn't necessarily matter how old you are as long as you're really willing to like put in that time at Hawaii. You're willing to put in that time as an assistant at Syracuse. I mean, even like Signetti, he's like on the older side. I'm not gonna say he's like he's not an elder old, but
Yeah.
he has been in this business for a while. Like it's the coaching. If you're willing to put in the work at a team and willing to be an assistant for a little bit and then be like, hey, I want a head coaching job, like you'll get it eventually. Well, a smaller team will always do that, and then you go from that smaller team to that bigger team.
Yeah. Apparently he also played too, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
He played at UMass from 1971 to 1974 as a point guard.
Wow. Wow. Well, that is crazy.
So this man is like he's lived basketball and is
Yeah.
still living basketball.
Yeah. Well,
It would
I
absolutely be
ex
insane to see St. John's win a national championship because I remember the days where like St. John's would be like a 7, 8, or 9 seed, and they would be like first or second round exits. Like,
no,
oh
yeah. And now he can change the whole program, dude. Like
yeah,
he can have the same effect that like a coach like Signetti had on IU, where you're making a kind of a smaller team turn into a bigger team. Um, but yeah, I think that's what I think is gonna happen. I think St. John's is winning it all.
yeah, that's a good team to pick. I will say I think in one of my brackets I might have them in the championship because I've made a few brackets.
Yeah, I like a good story, man.
I love making like I love stories like that, and I also love making brackets very
Oh
much.
yeah.
You know, have you been looking at the most picked champions by chance? Like, because ESPN has that like
I
on
have
there.
not. Who is that?
Apparently, the most picked champion is Duke at 25%.
It's actually kind of weird.
And
I didn't
Florida
expect.
is the next one at 21.1, and then Auburn is at 10.9.
Wow. Wow.
And
I mean,
then
Florida is hot, but man, I would expect more people to pick Auburn, low key.
I know. I think honestly, I think it's because of what happened to them last year.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
5% of brackets have St. John's winning it all. They're the highest voted two seed to win the whole thing. And the highest non one seed to win the whole thing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, I know we already know there's going to be some crazy stuff that happens. And just a couple days, man. Here we go. Here we
I will
go.
be glued to my television or phone, depending on if I'm on the go.
No, yeah. At my work on Friday at noon, they're actually they're shutting down at noon, and we're watching the game and eating pizzas.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so sick stuff for that. So I can't wait.
You know, they should cancel class next week for spring break or for March Madness. But
You already know if you're in class, you're gonna be watching people
yeah,
on laptops watching it with the hood up, with that earbud in. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
dude, that's gonna be
Hopefully my
gold.
professors aren't watching.
Dude, if I was you, I would not even go. Like, I mean, I'm just chilling at
Like,
home.
I'm gonna just not go to class this week. You know, just
Uh-huh.
extend spring break a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna be missing class anyways because I'm gonna be in Phoenix the next weekend. So
gotcha, gotcha. Well, all right. Well, I'm excited. I'm glad we got our picks in, and I hope may the best bracket win. It's not really like this is a competition because at the end of the day, we already know someone's just gonna absolutely take a dump on our picks with a random guy in accounting who's gonna be an accountant knocking down
like,
15 threes in a row. But we'll see what happens, man.
yeah, it's gonna be something to see for sure. I think. Like I feel like this year it's pretty balanced between some of the teams. Like more so in a than in recent history. Like with UConn. Like UConn's the only like number one overall seed to win the tournament, I think. I don't even know in how many years, but it's been a long time. Like I don't know if you saw that, but
No, yeah, I did not see that.
like normally the number one overall seed doesn't win March.
Yeah,
UConn was
no,
the only one that's like done that in like 20 years or something.
yeah, no. It's gonna be crazy.
I kind of want to look it up now. Let's see. It says, well, I think so. I'm like trying to search and it's interpreting it as number one seed, like as in one of the four number one seeds, but that's not what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, also like the overall, is that different like from just the actual selection committee saying these are the top four seeds, but isn't I don't someone else be like, hey, this is actually the top number one overall seed, or is that the same committee?
I think it's
Because
I think
isn't the AP poll, isn't that the one that determines, hey, this is the number one like
the number
team,
one overall
this is
seed.
number one team in America, but the committee, their only job is to get one seed in Midwest, one seed in South. You know, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I mean, it's weird because Auburn was number one week 18, but then week 19, Duke moves up to number one. And then even week 20, Duke stays at number one. Florida moves above Auburn, and Auburn's the number four seed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There must be some different ranking system that they use to determine who
Mm.
the number one overall seed is.
That's what I think. Yeah.
But apparently they were like, oh, like it says like just at like the top of the search, it says Auburn secured the number one overall seed thanks to winning the SEC regular season and producing a 28-5 record while playing the nation's second hardest schedule. So I don't know. But I do know that the like number one overall seed does not normally tend to do well in the tournament, besides UConn last year. So that's part of the reason why I like whenever I like see who the number one overall is, I don't normally trust. UConn was just a special case because they were decisively the better team out of everyone else. Like it wasn't, I don't think it was close. I feel like last year UConn was the most dominant college basketball team.
No, yeah, definitely.
This year, it's different. I don't think there is one team that is the most dominant because I mean Duke has only three losses, but they played a weak ACC this year,
Yeah.
and the SEC was just whooping each other all over the place.
No, yeah.
So this, but that just means it's going to be a more fun one this time.
No, yeah, for sure. I definitely think this March Madness. I mean, it's always great, but there's definitely some great teams in here and some great upsets that can happen, and hopefully they do. Makes it better for the sport.
Yes, and hope. And the other thing, and I don't know if you're the same way, but I hope that if my brackets get busted, that every single upset happens the rest of the way through and just completely messes everyone else up.
Yeah, no. I mean, it always does. There's never really a perfect bracket.
All right, well, I guess we'll be back next week at some point. I don't know when, because I leave for Phoenix on Thursday and I come back Monday night.
Yeah, no, like yeah, no, take all the time you need. Well, whenever you get back, we'll find a good time that week.
So I guess we'll be back at some point in the future. Hopefully, Ethan will be back this
Yes,
time
we
too.
will. Yeah. Yeah.